On one side of the screen is an elk, and on the other is a moose. And just to make things fun, in Europe, the animal we call a moose is actually called an elk. Are you confused yet? Don't worry, you won't be for much longer. The elk and the moose are two of the biggest and most magnificent members of the entire deer family. And because they're both huge and have giant antlers, people get them mixed up all the time. But they are completely different animals with totally different looks and different lifestyles. I'm going to break down the 5 easiest, can't-miss ways to tell them apart so you can look like a total wildlife expert. Let's start with the most obvious difference, their size. It's not even close. Moose are the undisputed heavyweight champions. They are the largest species in the entire deer family, anywhere on Earth. A big bull moose can stand 7 feet tall at the shoulder and weigh over 1,500 pounds. They are massive. An elk is a very big animal, but it's much more slender. A big male elk might top out at around 700 pounds. So a moose is more than twice as heavy as an elk. The second and easiest way to tell them apart is to just look at the antlers. They are completely different. A moose has what are called palmate antlers. They are huge, flat, and wide, and they look like a giant open hand or a big paddle. An elk's antlers are called branching antlers. They grow back in a single, thick beam with multiple sharp spikes, or points, coming off of them. So, paddle for a moose, points for an elk. Number 3 is to just look at their faces. A moose has one of the most unique faces in the animal kingdom. It has a big, long, droopy snout called a proboscis, and it has a weird flap of skin that hangs down from its chin called a dewlap, or a bell. An elk's face is much more graceful and horse-like. It's slender, and it doesn't have that big droopy nose or a bell, so they look completely different when you get up close, but they both live in big forests. How do they avoid fighting over the same food and the same space all the time? Well, that brings us to difference number 4, their lifestyles. They live in different neighborhoods and they eat different things. Elk are highly social animals. They live in big herds, and you'll often find them in mountain forests and open meadows where they spend their time grazing on grasses and browsing on shrubs. A moose is the total opposite. It's a grumpy loner. Moose are almost always by themselves, and they love wet, swampy places and dense northern forests. And while they'll eat twigs and bark, a huge and important part of their diet is aquatic plants that they get by dunking their entire head underwater and pulling them up from the bottom of a lake or a pond. And finally, difference number 5 is the sound they make. An elk is famous for its incredible call during the mating season, which is called a bugle. It starts as a low roar and then goes into a super high-pitched, screaming whistle. It is an unforgettable sound. A moose is much less dramatic. They mostly communicate with a series of low, deep grunts and moans. But the biggest reason we get these two animals confused all comes down to a funny accident of language. Here in North America, we call the big, paddle-antlered animal a moose, and we call the smaller, pointy-antlered animal an elk. But if you go to Europe, the exact same animal that we call a moose is what they call an elk. And what we call an elk, they often call a Wapiti, which is a Native American name. It's a simple case of the early European settlers in America getting the names all mixed up, and it has confused people for centuries. So let's do a quick recap. A moose is way, way bigger than an elk. A moose has flat, paddle-shaped antlers, while an elk has pointy, branching ones. A moose has a big, droopy face with a bell under its chin, while an elk has a slender, horse-like face. A moose is a solitary animal that loves swamps, while an elk is a social animal that loves meadows. And a moose grunts, while an elk lets out a crazy bugle. If you want to become an expert at identifying more of North America's greatest animals, make sure you subscribe.